The transition from Level 2's pipe-choked hellscape to Level 3 was like stepping into the beating heart of a dying machine. The moment Ethan crossed the threshold, the humid steam clinging to his skin evaporated instantly, placed by a dry, metallic heat that crackled with static electricity. The air tasted like burnt copper and ozone, coating his tongue with each labored breath. Before him stretched an endless industrial cathedral of machinery. Towering generators, each the size of small houses, hummed with barely restrained power, their casings vibrating under the strain of unseen workloads. Massive turbines spun behind chain-link fencing, their blades a continuous silver blur in the dim light. The ceiling, if there was one, disappeared into a haze of swirling dust particles, illuminated by the sporadic blue-white arcs of electricity. Jumping between exposed power conduits overhead, the floor was a grid of metal grating that burned through Ethan's socks with each step. Below the grating, thick bundles of cables pulsed with energy, glowing faintly orange like embers in some sections, icy blue in others. Warning signs plastered every surface, their yellow and black stripes faded. From years of neglect, danger, high voltage, radiation hazard, authorized personnel only. The few remaining functional lights flickered erratically, casting strobing shadows that made the massive machinery seem to shift position. When viewed from the corner of the eye, Ethan moved cautiously along a maintenance walkway. The metal railing, warm to the touch. The constant electrical hum vibrated through his bones, setting his teeth on edge. He passed a control panel, its analog gauges all pinned in the red, glass faces cracked from pressure. A faded schematic showed a labyrinth of identical machinery, stretching for miles in every direction. The heat became unbearable, near a bank of transformers that buzzed like angry hornets. Ethan's remaining almond water was now warm, the plastic, bottles soft in his pockets. He spotted a dripping pipe, not water but some viscous coolant that smelled chemically sweet. He let it run over his burned hands. It's a relief temporary but welcome. As he rounded a corner, the walkway opened onto a balcony overlooking a vast chamber. Below, row upon row of server racks stretched into the distance, their indicator lights blinking in chaotic patterns. The air here was cooler, but carried a sharp, acrid edge. Ethan's skin prickled with static as he descended a rusted ladder to investigate. The server farm was eerily silent, save for the occasional pop of a dying capacitor. Some racks had melted entirely, their components fused together in grotesque metal sculptures. Others seemed pristine, their lights blinking rhythmically, as if processing some unfathomable calculation. Ethan approached one cautiously. The screen on its front panel flickered to life, displaying rapidly scrolling lines of corrupted code before resolving into a single phrase. Subject Eton detected. A loud bang echoed through the chamber. Ethan spun to see a server rack topple. Like dominoes in the distance, the crash reverberating through the metal floor. Something was moving in the shadows between the rows, something low and quick. He caught glimpses of segmented metal limbs skittering across the grated floor, too. Many joints moving in unnatural synchronization. A cluster. The term surfaced in his mind as the thing's elongated body came into view, a nightmare fusion of industrial parts and organic tissue, its central mass bristling with salvaged tools and sharpened rebar. Ethan ran. The server aisles became a maze of blinking lights and sudden dead ends. Behind him, the sound of metal on metal grew closer, accompanied by a wet, grinding noise that might have been breathing. He ducked under a partially collapsed rack, feeling a sharp tug as his shirt caught on exposed wiring. The chase led him to a service elevator, its doors scarred with deep gouges. He slammed the call button repeatedly, watching the indicator lights flicker between floors. The cluster rounded the corner, its multiple limbs moving in terrifying coordination. The elevator doors groaned open, just as the first metal claw scraped the floor inches from Ethan's foot. He threw himself inside.
Ashing.
The door close button. The cluster's central mass slammed against the narrowing gap. A cluster of camera lenses where its face should have been reflecting his terrified expression back at him a dozen times over. The doors shuddered but held, trapping one segmented limb between them. The elevator gave a sickening lurch as the limb retracted with a screech of tearing metal. As the elevator ascended, the lights flickered and died, plunging Ethan into darkness. The machinery groaned in protest, cables twanging like guitar strings. A sudden impact rocked the car. Something heavy had landed on the roof. Ethan pressed himself against the far wall as scratching sounds moved across the ceiling, then silence. The elevator shuddered to a stop. When the doors creaked open, Ethan found himself facing not another industrial nightmare, but a long, empty hallway lined with identical office doors. The air smelled of stale carpet and disinfectant. Fluorescent lights buzzed overhead there, cold illumination revealing water stains on the ceiling tiles. He stepped out cautiously, the elevator doors slamming shut behind him with finality. The hallway stretched in both directions, featureless, save for the occasional fire extinguisher or bulletin board stripped bare. The silence was absolute. No machinery, no creatures, just the faint hum of the lights and his own ragged breathing. Ethan checked his supplies: 2 bottles of warm almond water, 1 can of Royal rations, and a canteen of Metalac-tasting water. His flashlight was nearly dead, its beam weak and yellow. He chose a direction at random and began walking, the office doors passing like silent sentinels. Behind one, he heard the faint sound of typing. He paused, ear pressed to the door, but the sound stopped the moment he touched the handle. Further, down the hall, a door stood slightly ajar. Ethan pushed it open to reveal a small break room. The coffee maker on the counter was still warm, a half-full pot of black liquid bubbling ominously. The calendar on the wall showed a date, 30 years past. In the fridge, he found a single unopened water bottle and a sandwich wrapped in plastic that looked disturbingly fresh. He took the water, leaving the sandwich untouched. The hallway seemed to go on forever, the same doors repeating at regular intervals. Ethan began marking his path by scratching the wall with a loose screw he'd pocketed in level 3. After what felt like hours, found his own mark. Confirming his worst fear, he was walking in circles. Exhausted, he slumped against the wall, sliding down to sit on the stained carpet. The fluorescent lights above him flickered, then died one by one down the length of the hallway, plunging him into darkness. From the blackness came a new sound, soft, wet footsteps approaching slowly. Something was breathing heavily in the dark, the rhythm wrong. Interrupted by occasional choked gurgles, Ethan fumbled for his dying flashlight. The beam flickered to life just in time to illuminate a figure standing inches from his face. It wore the tattered remains of office attire, its features stretched into an impossible rictus grin. The mouth opened, revealing rows of needle-like teeth, and let out a sound that might have been laughter before the light died completely in the pitch black. Ethan scrambled backwards on hands and knees until his shoulder connected painfully. With a door that gave way unexpectedly, he tumbled through, landing hard on cold tile. The door slammed shut behind him, cutting off the horrible laughter. His flashlight miraculously flickered back to life. He was in a bathroom, rows of sinks along one wall, stalls along the other. The mirrors above the sinks were all shattered, shards glittering on the countertops. The air smelled of bleach and something fouler underneath. One stall door swung gently on its hinges, creaking ominously. Ethan stood slowly, his muscles protesting. The tile was freezing under his bare feet. Approached the sinks cautiously, avoiding the broken glass. The faucets turned on when he waved his hands under them, spitting out rusty water that gradually ran clear. He drank greedily from his cupped hands. The cold water a relief after the heat of previous levels. A noise from the stalls made him freeze. A wet, slapping sound, like something dragging itself across the floor. The swinging stall door creaked again, moving more violently this time. Ethan backed toward the exit, but the door he'd entered through was gone. Only smooth tile wall remained. Last stall burst open with a bang. Something massive and pale flopped onto the floor, its bloated limbs squelching against the tile. It had no face, just a smooth expanse of flesh where features should have been. The skin stretched tight and shiny. It moved toward him with terrible purpose, leaving a trail of viscous fluid in its wake. Ethan turned and ran for the only other exit, a service door marked maintenance in faded letters. It opened onto a steep staircase leading down into darkness. Without hesitation, he took the steps, 2 at a time, the thing's wet, dragging sounds fading behind him. The stairs seemed to descend forever, air growing hotter with each flight. At the bottom, another door awaited, this one marked with a faded 4. Ethan pushed through without stopping, emerging onto a metal catwalk high above a vast, dimly lit space. The smell hit him first, chlorine and something organic, like a poorly maintained public pool. The catwalk vibrated underfoot, the metal groaning with each step. Below, the still surface of an enormous swimming pool stretched into the distance, its water unnaturally blue under the flickering underwater lights. The walls and ceiling were tiled in pale blue, giving the illusion of infinite space reflecting in the water's surface. Ethan gripped the railing, looking down at the tranquil pool. Then he saw them pale shapes moving just beneath the surface, gliding silently through the water, dozens of them, their elongated forms barely disturbing the water as they circled beneath the catwalk, waiting.